This is 5 Live Formula One with Jack Nichols.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Bahrain. It's the first qualifying session of the 2023 Formula One World Championship season. Fantastic to have your company ahead of what is a really intriguing session we've got coming up for you. We've had 3 days of pre-season testing a week ago here in Bahrain. Free practice sessions, 1 and 2 yesterday, another one this morning. But finally, this is where everybody will be going for their best time. This is where the guessing will stop. This is where the predictions and the reading into long runs and tyre degradation will come to an end, because we will finally see who has what pace and who will start on pole position for the first race of the season. Alongside me in the commentary box, we have the former Mercedes F1 reserve driver and current Formula E racer for Jaguar, Sam Bird. The BBC's chief F1 writer, Andrew Benson, is here too. Down in the pit lane is our F1 reporter, Rosanna Tennant. Sam, there's been so much talk coming into this season. Well, a little brief history lesson. After pre-season testing, everyone says, oh, don't bother coming for this season. It's going to be 2004 all over again. Max Verstappen will win all the races, and there's no point even watching. Suddenly, fast forward 24 hours later, and we've got Red Bull still look the fastest, but Fernando Alonso's in there in the Aston Martin. Mercedes don't look anywhere near as bad as they thought they did and said they did. Ferrari are a massive unknown. The whole of the midfield's incredibly tight. There's so much to look forward to.
Considering we thought that it could be a bit of a whitewash this season, it's incredibly competitive. We've got so many different cars and manufacturers, punching quick lap times in. This could be 60 minutes of pure excitement.
Rosanna Tennant, as I say, with us here in Bahrain, and she's down in the pit lane, and everybody's getting ready to go.
They certainly are, Jack. And as I look out over the pit lane and over the start-finish straight, the fans are starting to take their seats. There's a smattering of different team kit. There's quite a lot of orange, I have to say, so quite a few McLaren fans. Directly opposite me, a couple of Mexican flags. So a few Checo Perez and Red Bull fans in the mix as well tonight. The lights are up, and I have to say, there's a lot of anticipation in the air, a lot of excitement. I think so many unknowns, so many question marks. I think we're about to get some answers.
Absolutely. So we have the usual Formula One sporting format. Q1, 18 drivers, 20 drivers go out for 18 minutes, 5 will get eliminated. Then the second session, another 5 get eliminated until we're left for the battle for pole position with the top 10 on the track. And Fernando Alonso was the quickest driver in free practice 2 and 3, a 1 minute 30.9, the fastest lap of the weekend, only fractionally ahead of Max Verstappen. And Sam, just give us a bit of context to this Fernando Alonso Aston Martin story, because they'll be in the mix for sure, and they are, you hear Alonso and Aston Martin, those are two huge names, but no one thought a week ago coming into Bahrain that they would have a shot at fighting at the front.
Well, it only happens probably once every decade, I think, in Formula One, that you have a genuine surprise package that can compete for podiums and maybe even potentially wins, that comes out of nowhere. Now, this has the potential. We haven't even had a qualifying yet or a race, but it has the potential to be a real upset, and adding a fourth manufacturer to the sort of cars at the front. Obviously, we're used to seeing Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull dominate in Formula One for so many years, the top 6. Aston Martin have joined the gang, I think, here in Bahrain. And that's what's exciting. And as for Fernando Alonso, he's somebody that is loved by so many Formula One fans. Everybody would dearly love to see him fighting at the front again, because of the style that he drives, because of his personality, his skill set. He's been denied a great race seat for so many years, and it is really refreshing to see him chomping at the bit.
The Ferraris are a little bit uncertain. The order, for what it's worth, in free practice 3 earlier on was Alonso quickest, then Verstappen, Perez, Hamilton, Leclerc, the top 5. George Russell a little bit slower, and Stroll a little bit slower than that. Perez hasn't been far away from Verstappen, so if Verstappen's in the mix, is Perez in the mix?
Well, Perez was quicker than Verstappen all day yesterday, so I think those two are quite evenly matched, actually, going into this.
I think also Andrew Benson, BBC Chief F1 writer, the two Williams and the two AlphaTauri look to be in a little bit of danger in getting eliminated in Q1 as we get underway with 17 minutes and 50 seconds left on the clock. But that next spot in the elimination zone, no idea.
If I had to guess now, I'd say Haas.
Yeah.
But I don't know for sure.
What, when Hülkenberg was 5th quickest yesterday?
That was yesterday, though, wasn't it? And they weren't 5th quickest this morning, were they? Or early this afternoon. I mean, and as regards the battle at the front, I mean, I've spent most of the weekend wandering up and down the paddock, asking people in various teams, senior personnel, drivers, you know, is this real? Are we all just like deluding ourselves? Are Aston Martin really at the front? And every single person has said, yes, it's real. Now, everybody's also said Red Bull are still the favourites. Everybody came out of testing thinking Red Bull were miles ahead of everybody else. Red Bull have been struggling to find the balance in the car this weekend. They've got understeer. No one really knows why, but the track seems to have changed quite a bit since testing. But on the evidence that we've seen so far, the Aston Martin and Fernando Alonso in it are genuine front-running contenders, and the whole, I'm not joking when I say the whole paddock is absolutely thrilled about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because as Sam said, it's another team joining the front of the order. For so long we had just Mercedes, and then we got stuck in with a little bit of Ferrari joining the fight. Then finally Red Bull joined the fray 2 years ago. And then Mercedes dropped out of it last year, so it was just then the two teams at the front again. But a four-way fight at the front. This is quite funny. Kirk says, Jack, will your throat make it through the session, or will Felipe Drugovich need to take over? I don't know how good Felipe is at commentary, but then again, I don't know how good I am at it. But no, bit of a sore throat, but we soldier on. 16 minutes to go. And Tsunoda, Leclerc, Sainz, Hülkenberg and De Vries are the 5 drivers that have gone out onto the circuit now. Let's go down to Rosanna.
You were talking about how the circuit has changed, and it has since we were here for the testing session with 3 days in Bahrain. It's actually because there was quite a bit of wind in between testing and arriving here for the race weekend. I think a lot of sand has blown on to the track from the surrounding area, and it sort of got into the asphalt. It's very abrasive asphalt anyway, but it's sort of got different micro and macro elements to it, and maybe the scientists and I'm not sure what else, topographical experts will know what I'm talking about here, but the sand sort of got into the cracks, and so that's really changed the surface, and so the drivers have had a bit of a surprise coming here this weekend.
I tell you who's just had another surprise, Charles Leclerc. Something flew off the back of the car on the run down into turn 1. Then he had a massive lock-up at turn 1, and then something flew off the car on the apex of turn 1. So not ideal start there for Charles Leclerc. He's out on the medium tyres, and looked as though it came off sort of the rear of the floor, did it, as he was coming over a bump down the... Or was that... Oh, maybe it was off the wing, actually. Could have been off the wing. Difficult to tell where that came from.
What it flew away? There's a part that flew away.
I will come back to you.
So Leclerc, saying something flew off the car there. Maybe it was off the... Well, we're not quite sure where. We're all pointing at different parts of the car as we're watching on the screen. But then he also had a lock-up at the first corner. So they're on the medium tyres, Ferrari, so as to not use up a set of softs. But not ideal start there.
For me, it looked like a strake from one of the strakes on the part of the rear diffuser over the bumps down the main straight. But yeah, the medium compound tyre just takes a while, those fronts to warm up and not lock up the fronts. It's really, really tricky. If the people that are out on the medium compound, they've got to be careful.
Across the line comes Carlos Sainz. He does a 1:32.408 in the Ferrari. Yuki Tsunoda quickest on a 32.1 at the moment in the AlphaTauri. He's on the soft tyre. Sainz on the mediums. De Vries third on the softs. We're just getting another look at the next part of, and that looked like it was more from the sort of front left of Charles Leclerc, the next bit of bodywork that came off as he came through the right-hander, and it's kind of the front wing, isn't it?
Just let me know if it's all good on the car.
It was just a piece of the wheel arch front. You can push next lap.
Red flag is out. So with 13 minutes and 23 seconds on the clock, it will stop, and I wonder if that's for some debris somewhere out on circuit. We saw obviously those bits falling off Leclerc's car. Not seen any in sort of direct on the circuit racing line at the moment, but maybe there is some. I mean, it's right on the outside of turn 1, I think, that we're seeing it. But the race director, Niels Wittig, thinking it's better to be safer than sorry with that bit of carbon fibre on the outside. And wouldn't have stopped a Formula E race because there's a whole front wing on the track.
That happens every lap.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, but you know, in Formula One, that could get trapped in any number of different parts of one of these Formula One cars and cause a lot of damage. So it's better to be safe, get that out of the way. But what it does do, Jack, is obviously there's a lot of people that haven't set a time yet.
Only 3 drivers have: Tsunoda, Sainz and De Vries.
Yeah, so no, I mean there's still plenty of time, and everybody will get back to the pits. But the runners on the medium compound tyres now have got I think the Ferrari's got a tricky choice to make. Do they stick with these mediums, or do they go, you know what, we're just going to go on the softs now and just get through to Q2?
Well, the other drivers that it'll scupper a little are the likes of Hülkenberg, Verstappen, Perez, Piastri and Norris, because they'd all just left the pit lane when the red flag came out, so they will have had a bit of a kind of waste of time from what their original run plan was going to be. But as you say, they still will have time to get their runs in, no doubt about that. And it should be, if it is just for that debris on the exit of turn 1, a fairly swift red flag and the session getting back underway. Interestingly, Leclerc still sort of weaving from left to right.
Maybe he's thinking of staying on the mediums.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't bother doing that.
Trying to keep some residual temperature in the medium tyre as he comes through the final corner and back into the pit lane. And once all the cars are back in the pits, the marshals will be released to go and grab that bit of debris. And what are we looking at in terms of, you know, quite often throughout the season we've been focusing on, well, 4th in the Constructors' Championship basically, which is best of the rest. That's kind of now 9th on the grid, is sort of best of the rest, if the sort of pace that we're seeing is anything to go by. And where are McLaren in that fight? Where are Alpine in that fight? Are they still fighting over best of the rest? And what can Oscar Piastri do? Of course, he's in his first qualifying session for McLaren, as is Logan Sargent, his first qualifying session in Formula One for the Williams team as well. And Piastri's looked all right so far.
Really solid in free practice 3, beat his teammate Lando Norris, who's, you know, street cred within the Formula One paddock is sky high. We're now seeing a replay of Carlos Sainz going through the fast right-left in sector 2 and taking a lot of curb on the exit there, which can really hurt the floor and really upset the rear of the car.
Can you check when we go in the right part of the car? 2 curb and turn 7 curb, and it felt quite harsh. Understood?
So the red flag is to recover several bits of debris around the circuit. So there's that bit on the exit of turn 1, but also some in other places as well around the track. 13 minutes and 23 seconds to go. The track is now clear and the session will resume in 3 minutes time, just over 3 minutes time. And there's mechanics down on their knees just looking at the front of Charles Leclerc's car and putting a bit of tape on. Is that taping up a little bit?
Formula One cars, Jack, as you know, are held together with gaffer tape and all kinds of tape. That's what holds them together.
Naturally. If it moves when it shouldn't, get some tape. If it doesn't move and it should, get some WD-40. That's kind of the mechanics rule, isn't it? Something along those lines. I imagine other lubricants are available. I got no idea what you call WD-40. Oiling grease or something, or like I don't know. But anyway, 13 minutes and 23 seconds to go. That's probably not a rabbit hole to get bogged down in this early in the season anyway. And the Aston Martins had not left the pits yet Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll still sitting in the pit lane, and I imagine it'll be very busy when they go out onto the circuit in a few moments' time. Tsunoda was 0.7 of a second quicker than Nick de Vries on their first run, so I'm interested to see what the Dutchman can do up against Tsunoda. Of course, we've had that rookie performance last season, coming in at Monza, out qualifying Nicholas Latifi and bagging some points, but we'll see whether he can. Well, I think points might be a bit of a stretch this year for the AlphaTauri team, but he's got to try and beat his now fairly experienced teammate Yuki Tsunoda, starting his third season. And there have been flashes from Tsunoda over the years. He's not set the world alight and you think, wow, this guy's a star of the future necessarily, but he's held, I feel like he's relatively held his own against Pierre Gasly.
I think that, especially last year, he upped his game a little bit and he was competitive on many occasions. I think he came into Formula One with a great first race here 2 years ago. I mean, really a superb drive, and everybody was like, wow, this Tsunoda guy is going to come in and he's going to really be something very special. And then it kind of went quiet for him for a long period in that first year, and people were questioning him a little bit. But no, he's a strong driver. He's now the team leader, Jack. You know, he's coming in, he's got 2 seasons under his belt. Nick de Vries is going to have to be learning the ropes. But I think AlphaTauri are one of those teams at the moment that are really struggling. I'd say that the 2 bottom teams right now are the Williams and the AlphaTauri.
Yeah, Bethany saying Jack using up his stock for FP1 red flag talk so early in the session. Yeah, it's true. Need to keep some of that in my locker. 40 seconds until the session gets underway. SJ says WD-40 is water displacement type 40 fluid. That's what the WD stands for, apparently, is water displacement. Love that. That's the thing, when I say something nonsensical, you end up learning. Every day's a school day. 15 seconds till the session gets back underway. A lot of cars queued up at the end of the pit lane. A Williams is at the head of the queue, and I think that's Alex Albon at the head of the queue. Then it's the 2 Alfa Romeos waiting to go. I was speaking to Alfa Romeo earlier on, and, you know, where are you in the sort of pecking order? They're like, again, could be 7th on the grid, could be 17th. Not really sure, because that midfield is so tightly packed as the cars make their way out onto the track. Again, the session gets back underway, and we will see which 15 cars are able to advance through to the second part of qualifying. Roxy also saying WD-40 isn't a lubricant, it's a water displacement product, literally what the WD stands for. So I'm sorry Roxy, sorry everybody. Carlos Sainz's lap time has been deleted for track limits at turn 8, his 32.4, so that'll drop him away from second place. So the Ferrari's going out on a brand new set of soft tyres, so whatever that medium running in the end didn't really mean anything for them.
No, I think that's the sensible solution to do. I think that the medium, they gave it a go at the beginning of the session, fair enough, but now you just need to make sure that no mistakes, get through to Q2 unscathed.
Rosanna's in the pit lane.
I am, and the cars are piling out of it. Ferrari opting for that soft tyre then. They've made the decision. Let's see what they can do with it. An interesting call to go for the mediums. We were shaking our heads down here in the pit lane.
Yeah, so now they've gone out on the softs.
But at least they've corrected it. I've got the feeling that last year they might have just been belligerent and thought, do you know what, we're going to stick with the mediums. We can do this. That was the plan, so we're going to stick with it. At least this year they've gone, no, okay, we now just need to get through. So I think they've done the right thing.
So, I don't know if I'm believing this. Peter and Rob, this is my last comment on WD-40, right? Last one. But Peter and Rob say 40 means it's the 40th, it was their 40th formula. It was their 40th attempt at getting it right.
Yeah, it's perfectly believable.
I love that.
I mean, you're on your, how many 100th race, and you're still trying to get it right.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, well, I don't talk about it much, but as you can tell, 11 minutes and 12 seconds on the clock. So everybody now has gone out on the circuit. Only 2 drivers have a lap time on the board, Yuki Tsunoda and Nick de Vries. There's 11 minutes to go because, Leclerc's was a 2-minute 11 because he had to made that mistake at turn 1, and Carlos Sainz has got eliminated for track limits. That was when he ran wide actually earlier on the exit of turn 7. So we start afresh with less than 11 minutes to go, and down towards the first corner comes Max Verstappen, the reigning champion in the Red Bull. It's quite pendulum-y through that first corner. The back end trying to swap around on him as he turns through the first hairpin. Now heading up towards the end of the first sector. Fernando Alonso's just started his lap as well. And the lap times will be coming in quick, thick and fast. Verstappen through sector 1. And he's quicker than Lance Stroll by a tenth of a second through the first sector. Alonso comes through the first sector now, and he is a tenth down on Max Verstappen in sector 1. But obviously that isn't really where the fight is going to be. The fight is going to be to make it into the top 15, but you just can't resist looking at the Verstappen and Alonso times, can you? Alex Albon comes across the line in the Williams to do a 32.0 on the soft tyre, a tenth quicker than Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri. 10 minutes to go in this first part of qualifying, and Verstappen still has the fastest first sector of anybody until Charles Leclerc. Leclerc goes quicker than Verstappen in sector 1. Verstappen is now coming out of the penultimate corner on turn 13 on the long straight down towards the final right-hander at turn 14. Down through the gears on the power and towards the line. Stroll is quickest at the moment on a 31.6. Verstappen comes across the line and he goes faster on a 31.295, 3/10 quicker than Lance Stroll. Fernando Alonso goes quicker though. Alonso in the Aston Martin, faster than Max Verstappen by just over a tenth of a second. But Charles Leclerc, George Russell and Carlos Sainz are currently all going faster than Fernando Alonso. Yuki Tsunoda jumps up to fourth position with a good lap actually. 2/10 quicker than both the Alfa Romeos and only a tenth slower than Lance Stroll. Ocon now goes up into fourth place. Here comes the Ferrari out of the final corner. It's Charles Leclerc, and Leclerc goes quicker than Alonso. Verstappen gets shuffled down to third. George Russell across the line, and he goes quicker than Leclerc. Lewis Hamilton comes out of the final corner, cuts the timing beam. It's fifth for Hamilton, and Carlos Sainz goes quicker than the lot of them. A 1 minute 30.993. Max Verstappen, the man who allegedly is going to run away with the World Championship this year, after the first runs, of course, in Q1. Fifth quickest. Sainz, Russell, Leclerc, Alonso, Verstappen, the top 5. Perez is in 6th place, although he's... Perez is in 6th. Hamilton down in 7th. Stroll in 8th, although his lap time is going to be deleted for track limits. Ocon is now in 8th. Tsunoda 9th. Joe 10th. Bottas, Magnussen, Albon, De Vries and Gasly, the 15 drivers who would make it through as it stands. Hulkenberg, Norris, Piastri, Sargent and Stroll, the drivers out of it at the moment. Horrible laps for the McLarens. 17th and 18th on the grid. Well, long way to go, 7.5 minutes. It's not that long, but goodness me. Rosanna?
Yeah, the cars are piling back into the pits, and as I was looking out across the pit lane, a cheer went up as Fernando Alonso went fastest, and I thought, oh, we've got some Fernando fans in, and then Charles cut the beam and another cheer went up, and I was like, oh, it's Ferrari fans in. And then when George went over the line, more cheering, and then Sainz as well. I think so much cheering, I think just because this is a sign of things to come in 2023, maybe.
Nah, come on, we can't. We're in for such an interesting Checker Flag podcast later. If the session finishes anything like this, I will never listen to a motorsport journalist again. I think that's what it will come down to.
So much for that. Red Bull are going to dominate every session.
Can I just defend motorsport journalists here?
Yeah,
no.
do your
We're only
best.
Reporting what we're told. We're not inventing this stuff. Teams up and down the pit lane were saying Red Bull look like they're in a league of their own. And, what can I say?
Maybe they still will be.
Don't blame us. We're just the messengers. By the way, you're a journalist too, sort of.
Well, yeah. Touche. 6 minutes and 20 seconds to go. Everyone's got one more run to do. At the moment, eliminated would be Hulkenberg in 16th, Norris and Piastri 17th and 18th, 19th Logan Sargent in the Williams, and then 20th at the moment is Lance Stroll because of that lap time deletion. So Albon and De Vries would be making it through at the moment. Ocon would be best of the rest in 8th position. Hamilton is 6/10 away from Carlos Sainz and half a second away from his teammate George Russell.
Lance Stroll's got to be careful. He's got to do a tidy lap next lap, obviously to to simply get through to Q2. But also, if he doesn't, then he's going to have to get permission to start the race, because he's currently not within the 107% lap time requirement. As we see where he's gone off on the exit of turn 13 with just about all four wheels over the white line.
Yep, so Stroll's lap time deleted, and now he will have one shot at getting out of Q1.
I mean, he should have plenty in the pocket, really. That Aston Martin is flying, so he just needs to do a sensible lap.
Driving with two injured wrists, Lance Stroll, after a cycling accident a few weeks before the start of the season, missed pre-season testing, and now is back in the car with 5 minutes to go. Everybody in the pits waiting still. This is going to be quite busy when we go out onto the circuit. What is it? It's a minute and a half lap, so I reckon, well, within the next 40 seconds, surely everybody will be making their way out onto the circuit, maybe with 3 minutes to go if you really want to push it. Nico Hülkenberg making his return to Formula One as well, at the moment eliminated in 16th position. The McLarens looked fairly solid, or not as bad as was feared in the practice sessions, but 17th and 18th for Norris and Piastri is a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, they were teetering inside the top 10, 9th, 10th in FP3 and FP2. But then you never know what fuel levels people are running, what their programs are doing.
Norris is a second slower on that lap than he was in FP2 yesterday.
Very strange.
Slower. Everybody else is about the same pace. Alonso in FP2 yesterday, a 1 minute 30.9. Here, a 1 minute 31.1. So
well, maybe there's a mistake in there that we haven't seen on the television feed, but let's hope that they can find a little bit of speed on this last lap.
Where's Carlos Sainz?
Well, he doesn't need to go out
he's
anymore.
Quick, isn't he? Sorry, yeah. He's got out of the car. Right, so we'll see who goes again. I would say, do you think Verstappen needs to go again? In 5th place? He's on a 31. He's got a second to the drop zone. A lot of track evolution in Bahrain as the sort of sun goes down and the temperatures get cooler. Huge.
I can imagine we'll see the cut-off time improve by 3-4 tenths easily in this run alone.
Leclerc is making his way out of the pit lane now, so he will have another go at it. Fernando Alonso is heading out of the pits too in the Aston Martin as he joins the circuit, and we'll wait and see if they are new or used tyres for Fernando Alonso as he comes into the first corner. Logan Sargent still in the pit lane. Verstappen is having to go again. Oh, sorry, that's Perez. Perez is making his way out the pits, so he does have to go again. Hamilton leaving the circuit. It might just be Carlos Sainz, you know. Sainz might be the only driver that is going to stay in the pits and sit this second run out, because Verstappen has left the pit lane now. So everybody on track again for a second run in this first part of qualifying. Carlos Sainz remains in the pits. He's confident he can get through on this one run. And Russell and Leclerc and Alonso all going out on used tyres. So is Verstappen. So not a new set of tyres. They think they've got enough in the bank to be able to improve enough just with track conditions and a second run. So only Carlos Sainz in the pit lane. 2 minutes and 0 seconds on the clock. And this is the fight to get through into the second part of qualifying. At the moment, it's Hülkenberg, Norris, Piastri in the McLaren, Logan Sargent in the Williams, and Lance Stroll, who would be eliminated. Gasly's right on the bubble in 15th place. De Vries is 14th. 13th is Alex Albon. 12th is Kevin Magnussen in the Haas, who had that wonderful Formula One return story here 12 months ago. And Alex Albon is throwing his Williams through the middle sector. As I say, 13th fastest at the moment. There were concerns for Williams coming into this season that they and AlphaTauri would be stuck at the back. And at the moment, he's only half a second away, Alex Albon, from Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes. Albon now coming out onto the back straight. Again, everybody on circuit, bar Carlos Sainz, who's the quickest driver and confident that he can make his way through. 53 seconds on the clock. What's Lance Stroll doing? He's done a 28.9 in Sector 1. Pretty good first sector, actually, for Lance Stroll. So this should be comfortably good enough to send him through in the Aston Martin. He's coming through the middle sector now. Quite a bit of traffic coming down the back straight into the final corner, which Albon has just had to negotiate. Everyone's staying off the racing line for the time being. Stroll through the middle sector. He's 2 tenths down on Sainz, but again, should be good enough to see him through. Alex Albon comes across the line. 6th quickest. Quicker than Sergio Perez. Solid enough lap that from Albon. Logan Sargent, his teammate, starts a flying lap now. Here comes Yuki Tsunoda. He goes ahead of Alex Albon. Lance Stroll's going to be the next driver to come across the line in the Aston Martin, and he goes into 5th place. So Stroll into 5th. That should comfortably see him through. Nick de Vries is not improving here. This could be problems for Nick de Vries. He's about to take the checkered flag, and he finishes 15th. So he's right on the bubble in that AlphaTauri. He's been out-qualified by Yuki Tsunoda. Joe jumps up into 11th position. Hamilton's not improving so far. He's in 10th as it is. Now make that 11th. And Hamilton is in a little bit of danger here. What can Lando Norris do? Goes up into 13th spot. Hamilton should be all right. Kevin Magnussen is coming through Sector 1, but he's already finished his lap, I think. Gasly jumps up into 15th place. So Magnussen, I think, is going to be out of this one. Kevin Magnussen will be eliminated along with Nick de Vries. So it's Hülkenberg, Piastri and Logan Sargent who are battling to get through. Oscar Piastri, 19th at the moment, out of the final corner and across the line. And he only goes 17th. McLaren out in Q1. Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas on his return to Formula 1. Oh, up to 6th. So Pierre Gasly gets knocked out. Mega lap from Nico Hülkenberg. Denies his teammate a slot in the final, in the second part of qualifying. What can Logan Sargent do? The last driver across the line in the Williams. And Logan Sargent, oh, he goes 16th. Doesn't quite make it through to the second part of qualifying in his first Formula 1 race. He does an identical lap time. Identical lap time to Lando Norris, 15th in the McLaren. Sargent out, 16th. Gasly out, 17th. Magnussen out, 18th. Piastri out, 19th. And Nick de Vries qualifies at the back of the grid in 20th position. Big lap in the end there from Hülkenberg. None of the front runners improved in the end. They all bailed out of their last laps. So Sainz is quickest. Q2 will start in 6 minutes' time. And not a bad effort there from Logan Sargent on his debut. 2 tenths slower than Alex Albon. Not terrible.
Great effort from Logan Sargent, I've got to say. I mean, it's so unfortunate that Alexander Albon's so close to track limits. To be the same lap timing identically to Lando Norris, and Lando Norris gets through just based on the fact he did the lap time first, has got to be difficult to swallow for Logan Sargent, but I think you can be happy with that first effort. The other one that is really, really strong is Nico Hülkenberg up in 6th place in the Haas. What is it about Haas employing drivers that have been out of a drive for multiple years and then coming to Bahrain and absolutely delivering?
Yeah, remarkable stuff from Hülkenberg. So, Gasly eliminated, 17th in the Alpine. That's going to be disappointing for them. Obviously, everyone who gets knocked out in Q1 is going to be disappointing, but But it's 2 tenths from Logan Sargent, 16th in the Williams. It's 2 tenths to Yuki Tsunoda in 8th. And remember that AlphaTauri, talking to a journalist in the paddock earlier, well, I wasn't expecting AlphaTauri to be quite this bad. Well, suddenly they're best for the rest. And Gasly's just had his lap time deleted, but he's 17th anyway, so that's not that exciting. But not bad from Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri.
Not bad at all. Not bad at all. I think, he's clearly getting much more out of the car than Nick de Vries.
Andrew Benson, McLaren.
Well,
that's my kind of standout, really, from Q1.
To further defend motorsport journalists, people did tell me at the end of testing that McLaren might be right at the back, and they're not far off right at the back, are they? With Norris in 15th and Piastri 18th.
Piastri, De Vries and Gasly all on the same 10th of a second.
Yeah, I think Piastri will be disappointed with that lap time. He's 4 tenths or just under 4 tenths off Norris. McLaren would have wanted him to be a bit closer than that, I think, even though it's his debut. But it just underlines the trouble that they're in. they unveiled their car, and basically the first thing they said was, we missed all our targets and it's going to be a while before we can move forward. So not a huge surprise. I would say actually more disappointing for in the picture so far is Alpine. They set themselves the target this year of being 4th in the championship and closing on the top 3. And here's Esteban Ocon after the first session of the year in 12th, and his new teammate Pierre Gasly right at the back. Okay, Bahrain was not a good track for Alpine last year, as one of their senior team members was telling me just before qualifying, so they were getting their excuses in early there. So I don't think it'll be all doom and gloom, but certainly out in Q1 with one car and looking like they might go out in Q2 with the other car is not what they would have expected.
1.2 seconds front to back.
That's super close. We've actually just seen a little graphic on our TV screen that explains minimum corner speeds, Jack, for the dominant corners on this circuit. Have a guess which driver dominates the minimum corner speeds around this circuit this weekend?
Alonso?
Fernando Alonso.
Wow.
Which kind of implies that they've gone for more downforce this weekend, and they're maybe not the quickest in a straight line or getting down the straight super well, but that should help them with regards to tyre deg, and that means that they're able to carry higher minimum speeds through the corners, which is why he is so quick.
It also might affect them in qualifying, mightn't it? Because
it might mean they're qualifying 4th, 5th, 6th, but if that helps the deg, there's no points for today. There's 25 points available tomorrow, so they're probably looking at the bigger picture.
Tony says, calm down, guys, this is just Q1.
Yeah, but we've got to talk about something, haven't we?
Yeah, you all have a go at me when I talk about WD-40, so 1 minute and 23 seconds left on the clock. Nick de Vries and Kevin Magnussen disappointedly walking down the pit lane, especially when their teammates both doing a good job, with Hulkenberg in 6th in the other Haas and Tsunoda in 8th in the other AlphaTauri, heading down to get weighed and then head to the pen for some interviews, and they make their way out of the back. So Q2, this is going to be a tight, and this could be a bit of a shock one here, because Hamilton was 13th quickest in that session, Perez 10th. Okay, they abandoned their second runs, but with the tightness of that midfield, again a bit, because in theory, right, we know the 4 fastest cars in whatever order. It is surely Red Bull, Aston Martin, Ferrari, Mercedes. Like, those are the 4 fastest cars. I think we can all be fairly confident about that. But that's 8 of those 10 positions taken.
So then who are the final 2 drivers or cars?
Right, but also, if you get it slightly wrong as one of those big 8, you could be out
Absolutely.
of Q1.
It is now critical you drive a very strong lap. No mistakes, strong lap. Otherwise, yeah, you can get swallowed up and your day will be done in Q2.
Qualifying for the first Grand Prix of the season here on Radio 5 Sports Extra. The second part of qualifying beginning now. The light goes green at the end of the pit lane. And no one heading straight out onto the circuit here. Again, Lando Norris, we were saying McLaren struggling, etc., but he was 15th quickest. He was 2/10 from Sergio Perez in 10th place.
It's so close in the mid-pack, so close. One slight lock-up, one miss of an apex by 10 centimetres, and that's your day done.
When you get to these gaps, because we often hear in Formula 1, our driver doesn't make a huge difference because it's all about the car. And when, you have a car that's half a second quicker than the next car, 3/10 quicker than the next, you can't make but this is where drivers can make a difference, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I know they always can, but when it's this
No, but take Lando Norris for an example. He's one guy that I would say in the mid-pack that's always able to extract 2/10 more than most of the others. He can always go into quali, and if you say to him, Lando, we need 2/10, he'll go and deliver 2/10. So I mean, I'm not saying that McLarens are ready to fight in the top 10, just giving you an example, but someone like Valtteri Bottas, this could play into his hands this afternoon in the Alfa Romeo, who they've looked okay actually since arriving here in Bahrain. They could be up there. Yuki Tsunoda's been delivering. It's a circuit that he likes. I really don't know where it's going to go, to be honest, Jack.
Yeah, I know. We're in for a really, really fascinating second part of qualifying. The clock has started ticking here, but everybody happy to sit in the garage at the moment. The new rule came in last year, didn't it, where you can do whatever tyres you want in the second part of qualifying. It doesn't affect the tyres you start the race on. Tomorrow evening gets underway in 23 and a half hours time, the Grand Prix. 6 o'clock local time, 3 o'clock in the UK, and you can listen to it wherever you're listening to right now, here on Sports Extra or the BBC Sport website or wherever. Still everybody sitting in the pit lane. And who's going to be the first to blink and head out onto the circuit for their second session? They'll all be going out on brand new tyres as well. And now Lance Stroll, the signal is given. They lower Stroll down. He's actually going out on a set of used tyres for this first run, Lance Stroll. Pulls out of the pit lane, turns the wheel hard to the right, and makes his way down towards pit lane exit. And it's actually Hulkenberg who's at the head of the field. Everybody else streaming out onto the circuit behind him. So a reminder that 11th through 15th in that first part of qualifying was Tsunoda, Albon, Perez, Hamilton and Norris. So we will see who manages to get through in this second part. The two Ferraris leaving the pit lane now look like they were on used tyres as well. It's a brand new set though for Max Verstappen. Shiny new set of Pirellis for the Dutchman. And Sergio Perez about to leave the pits now, also on a brand new set of the red-walled soft tyres. Again, you just got to be in the top 10 to get through to the final pole position shootout, but easier said than done. Brand new set of tyres for Russell, brand new set of tyres for Alonso, used for Lance Stroll, used for Hulkenberg actually as well, and used for the two Ferraris of Sainz and Leclerc. So interesting difference there, that both the Astons and the Red Bulls going out on a brand new set of tyres. Perez is at the back of the train now as they make their way onto the circuit. Alex Albon yet to leave the pits in the Williams, which is a bit of a surprise. So we'll keep an eye on him unless they only want to sacrifice one more set of tyres in this session or some such. Sound you can hear is Lance Stroll, who's going to be the first driver to set a lap time. A 30.993 for Carlos Sainz in that first session. A 30.907 is the fastest lap we've had all weekend. Stroll comes underneath the commentary box. Grandstand on his left-hand side, the tall building on the inside of turn 1, the tall cylindrical building lit up with lights, which Stroll is now looking at as he turns into the left-hander of 2. Whee! Big snap on the way into turn 2. That's going to cost him a lot of time. I was surprised to see that happen, Sam.
Yeah, that's a really tricky corner, turn 2. The revs are building just as you go in there, and when the revs get super high, very, very tricky to get on the power 100%. And that's exactly what's caught him out. Just high rev range in second gear. I think a short shift should help him there.
So Stroll through the first sector, and he's a 10th down on Esteban Ocon. It will have cost him quite a lot of time, that moment for Lance Stroll, on a used set of tyres as well, so he will get a new set by the end of the session. Fastest through the first sector now, Valtteri Bottas, but still quite a way off the pace of Lance Stroll's Sector 1 from Q1. Fernando Alonso comes through Sector 1 at 29.1 for Alonso. Carlos Sainz just starting his lap now. Verstappen and Perez will be the last two drivers to come across the line. Verstappen comes past us now and begins his first lap of Q2. Sergio Perez out of the final corner starts his first lap of Q2, and Stroll is about to finish his first lap of Q2. It's not going to be a strong one though after that mistake at turn 2. Stroll in the first part of qualifying did a 31.1. That was a 32.3, so a full second slower because of that error. Still goes quicker than Esteban Ocon manages. Ocon actually 8/10 slower than he managed in the first part of qualifying. He's on a set of used tyres as well. Quite a lot of drivers out there on a used set. Joe goes ahead of Stroll, up into second place. Hulkenberg is quickest. Bottas goes up into second position now. Fernando Alonso looks like he's going to go back to the top of the times, and he does. A 31.0 for Fernando Alonso. A tenth quicker than he managed in Q1 on a new set of tyres as well this time. Lando Norris splits the Alfa Romeos. Here comes George Russell out of the final corner. Russell goes quickest. A 31.086 for George Russell on a brand new set of tyres. And Hamilton goes quicker still. 30.901, fastest lap of the weekend, set by Lewis Hamilton. Charles Leclerc goes fourth fastest, but on used tyres. And Carlos Sainz comes across the line, goes fourth fastest now, ahead of Leclerc, also on used tyres. Here comes Max Verstappen, looking quick, and goes fastest by 4 tenths. The fastest lap time we've seen over the course of the weekend by 4 tenths of a second, and Perez goes into second spot, 2 tenths ahead, 2 tenths behind his teammate, and 2 tenths ahead of Lewis Hamilton.
And they've unleashed the bull in Red Bull. Wow. That's some serious speed that Max Verstappen and Checo Perez have just shown there. That's what we've all been fearing a little bit.
Yeah. Andrew Benson's just passed me a note that says motorsport journalist. So no, but you were the one telling me the pace is real, Andrew, so don't give me that. Alonso down behind Hamilton and Russell then. The Ferraris 6th and 7th, but they were on used tyres, and but 9 tenths slower than Max Verstappen. First runs completed. Verstappen quickest, Perez second, Hamilton third, Russell fourth, Alonso 5th, Sainz in 6th, 7th for Leclerc, 8th Hulkenberg, 9th Bottas, 10th for Lando Norris. And then you've got Joe, Stroll, Ocon, Tsunoda and Albon, the 15 drivers, and they would be the 5 drivers eliminated, although Albon's on his outlap now, so they wanted to throw one set of tyres at this, I think, Williams, and they're just trying to do it in this middle part of the session when they've got the track to themselves. But so Verstappen found 7 tenths of a second, Q1 to Q2. Perez found 7 tenths of a second, Q1 to Q2. Hamilton found 6 tenths of a second. Russell matched his lap time. Alonso found 1 tenth. Sainz lost half a second, as so did Leclerc, but they were on used tyres. So maybe it's not over. Maybe it's not over yet. There's time to be found, Sam.
Yeah, there's time. Always the optimist.
There's lap time out
Glass half full. There is lap time out there, but that does lay down a marker that we haven't really seen from Max Verstappen all weekend, and then just as it starts to matter, up he pops. Just when it starts to matter, we've been hoping and praying for other people to come to the fore, which is great. But now, when you want to put your chips down, Max Verstappen puts in a big lap time.
Stroll's only down in 12th because of that mistake, and he's just been called to the weighbridge, Lance Stroll. Sometimes I don't buy that the weighbridge is randomised.
It's the most annoying. I mean? It's the most annoying thing when you're in qualifying and your back's against the wall, and the FIA call you to the weighbridge. It's the most infuriating thing.
Alex Albon doing his lap now. Coming up into the right-hander of turn 4. He's 15th currently. No lap time on the board. Oh, and he goes wide at 4. He looked wide on the way in, and then I think he's gone all 4 wheels off on the way out.
Now, he knows that he's gone off. Yeah, now the best thing to do now is back right off, get the tyres back in a better window, and then go again next lap. That's all you can do now, is just hope that you've still got tyre life in those soft compound tyres.
So a mistake from Alex Albon up at turn 4, and he will be going again next time around. I mean, he's got time to maybe do be a bit tight to do a double call, but we'll see what he does. Logan Sargent, his teammate, Williams, eliminated. He was wide going into 4, and then he was wide coming out of 4, basically, and then lots of understeer coming through 5 and 6 there. Unpleasant.
Yeah, it didn't look the easiest there. It looked very, very understeery.
So, whilst everyone's in the pits at the moment, let's go down. Rosanna's been hearing from some of the drivers eliminated in Q1.
Yeah, Jack, as you'd expect, a general theme of disappointment. First qualifying session of the year. I think hopes were high across several of the teams. I was listening to Oscar Piastri and he was telling me he was disappointed because actually he made too many mistakes. It wasn't actually the car. And he's so honest, so candid. He said, I need to perform better than that. I don't think the red flag helped in terms of getting into a rhythm, but he is hoping to make up for it tomorrow in the McLaren. And of course, Nick de Vries, 20th for him. He lost his rears. That's what he was telling me on the exits of turn 1 and 2 and 8. The sort of list went on and on. But he sort of shrugged his shoulders. He says, it is what it is. And they are taking comfort at AlphaTauri that their long run pace is better than their single lap pace. So this is a circuit you can overtake on, Jack. So even if you're starting plumb last, there will be opportunities tomorrow evening.
Yeah, absolutely. You can overtake, and there's options for alternate strategies quite often. Lance Stroll is making his way now out of the pits, so he got the weighbridge done, managed to get back to the garage, and is now leaving the pits with 2 minutes and 20 seconds to go. Verstappen and Perez, by maybe having a little bit of a flex and staying in the pit lane at the moment, as they look to be comfortably through into the final part of qualifying. Albon pitted.
Yeah, strange decision that. I thought that he'd go for another one, unless they're going to quickly change tyres, but I think that they're probably out of their allotted amount by now. This is going to go back to another set.
Well, the reason I would suggest the reason they were doing the lap time when they was because they only wanted to use one set of tyres. He's still in the pit lane, Alex Albon, so unless it was some kind of mechanical fault that made him go off the circuit, some kind of loss of power steering or something like that, but we'll wait and see what happens. A minute and a half to go. Even if he leaves the pit lane now, he won't make it. So Albon's out. Very, very weird there for Alex Albon. So let's focus on the 4 drivers who are in the danger zone at the moment. Zhou, Stroll, Ocon and Tsunoda are the 4 that would join Alex Albon out of Q1 as it stands. Norris is on the bubble right now in 10th position. Bottas is 9th in the Alfa Romeo. Hülkenberg is 8th. Then it's the Ferraris of Leclerc 7th and Sainz 6th. But Ferrari have gone out on a new set of tyres this time around, as has everyone, to be honest, except for Bottas. Bottas is the only driver out there who hasn't gone out on a new set. Zhou coming through the first sector and is quicker than Lando Norris by 0.4 of a second. So that's a big first sector from Zhou, but it also illustrates the track evolution.
Everybody's going quicker at the moment, Jack. Everybody's improving. I mean, the timing screens on our mini sectors are just lit up with green and purple everywhere.
Lance Stroll is going to be last here to start a flying lap. So any kind of yellow flag or any kind of incident for a driver ahead could scupper him. The first across the line is going to be Esteban Ocon, and Ocon could be doing low 31s here by the looks of things. He's going very, very quickly down into the final corner, turns into the final right-hander at turn 14, out across the line. How high does Esteban Ocon jump? He comes through and goes up into 4th position. Checker flag is out. Ocon goes 4th. Now here comes the Haas of Hülkenberg, who goes 3rd, quicker than the Mercedes of Hamilton. So everyone needs to put a lap in here if they want to be able to get through. Zhou only goes 9th fastest. Next is Valtteri Bottas. His teammate, Yuki Tsunoda, only goes 14th quickest. Bottas jumps up into 8th. Leclerc is now eliminated in 11th position, but he is improving at the moment. Norris is finding time as well. Sound you can hear is Lando Norris coming out and across the line. Alonso splits the 2 Red Bulls. Norris goes 8th at the moment, gets ahead of Valtteri Bottas. Charles Leclerc comes through in the Ferrari, and he goes fastest on a 30.282. Carlos Sainz now is in 11th position, but he manages to get out of the drop zone. So it's Norris who's on the bubble in 10th position. It's only Stroll that can stop him. So Norris or Stroll will be eliminated from the second part of qualifying. Stroll into the final corner now at turn 14. This has been a much more neat run for the Canadian. Does he manage to get through into Q3? Yes, he does, but only just 0.2 of a second. Stroll in 10th, 11th for Lando Norris, 12th for Valtteri Bottas, 13th Zhou Guanyu, 14th Yuki Tsunoda, 15th Alex Albon. That was tight stuff there for Lance Stroll.
So we've had 3 practice sessions, and I feel like everything that we've learned can now get put in the bin, and it's really topsy-turvy at the moment. We've got Charles Leclerc topping that session, Max Verstappen second. It looks like huge track evolution the last sort of 5 minutes of each qualifying session at the moment. Every time somebody puts on a second set of soft tyres, they find a good 3 to 5 tenths.
Yeah, so, and a reminder, Ferrari didn't do a new tyre run on that second part. Also, Alonso improved, but the Mercedes improved also. So for what it's worth, Leclerc quickest, Verstappen second but only did 1 run, Russell third, Hamilton fourth, Sainz fifth, Alonso in the Aston Martin sixth. Perez got shuffled down to 7th place in the end. So that wasn't plain sailing for Perez and the Red Bull. Hülkenberg 8th, Ocon 9th, Stroll in 10th, and eliminated will be Norris, Bottas, Zhou, Tsunoda and Albon. And it's 1/100th of a second Verstappen, Russell, Hamilton and Sainz are separated by. Pretty tight.
A lot of time, a lot of lap time there.
So, final part of qualifying will get underway in a few minutes' time, and the battle for pole will be on. And we'll see whether Verstappen can make it through. Lando Norris eliminated in 11th place. Oh, sorry, whether Max Verstappen can convert his pace into pole. Andrew Benson, the BBC Chief F1 writer, has things to say.
One of the interesting things for me about that session just there is that looks to me like another one of those sort of classically big laps from Leclerc. He's been a little bit behind Carlos Sainz for most of this weekend. Nip and tuck, a 10th here or so, but generally Sainz has been, sneaking ahead as the lead Ferrari driver just about, I would say, and suddenly in that final run in Q2, Leclerc's 0.3 quicker than Sainz. Now, Sainz might have made a mistake, so we can't be definitive about it, but on the face of it, that's what it looks like at the moment.
Well, Charles Leclerc's done an almighty middle sector, so he's really hooked up down the hill, braking into turn 8 and then 9 and 10. That's where he's really excelled on that lap. Maybe, Sainz has actually topped Sector 1, Leclerc Sector 2. So Ferrari actually looking pretty strong.
And Russell Sector 3.
Russell indeed, Sector 3.
Right. Verstappen pole.
Oh, don't put this pressure on me, Jack. I really don't know now. I really don't know. It's kind of...
It's an emotional roller coaster this weekend,
no,
isn't
but
it?
when you look at that now, it's sort of... I suppose, unfortunately, right now, the top teams are at the top again. You've got Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes dominating the top 5, and then Alonso and Perez in 7th. So you've got Fernando in there somewhere. What I'm excited about, obviously, clearly, is the race tomorrow. And what can Alonso do with a slightly higher downforce package? And is that really going to help his tyre deg going into tomorrow's race? Because I think they're looking at it in terms of the long game.
And actually, do you know what, Jack? This looks like exactly what people said it was after testing, with Red Bull with an advantage, because Verstappen's only done 1 run in that session. Ferrari, the next quickest team on the face of it at the moment. Mercedes not far off them, and Aston Martin nip and tuck with Mercedes. I think if you'd asked Fernando Alonso going into this weekend, we've all been getting very excited about what he and Aston Martin might do. I think the whole paddock's been getting a bit carried away with the possibilities or the thoughts and hopes about that. But if you'd asked him going into the weekend, would he take, we haven't finished qualifying yet, but would he take 0.13 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton in qualifying, he'd have been really happy with that.
Absolutely. The other person I think has been super impressive this weekend is Nico Hülkenberg. In the top 10, 8th in that session in his Haas. What a remarkable job he's doing.
Yeah, he was really quick yesterday in free practice 2, and then his teammate Kevin Magnussen out in 17th spot. Hülkenberg making his return to Formula 1 as we get ready to go with Q3 in 2 minutes' time. And the fight for pole position shall begin with Charles Leclerc quickest in that second session. But again, they both did 1 run on new tyres, Ferrari and Red Bull, so that was kind of similar, but Ferrari's was a little later in the session. So the track, and we saw the track evolution was very, very strong. Leclerc found 0.8 of a second in the end. Verstappen between Q1 and Q2. Verstappen 0.7. Russell half a second. Hamilton 1 whole second between Q1 and Q2, but he was down in 7th place at the end of Q1. And again, Stroll just about managing to squeeze through, albeit half a second away from his teammate Fernando Alonso, which is where he's been all weekend, to be fair, Lance Stroll. Driving with his injured wrists. 1 minute exactly to go before the final part of qualifying. And now the pressure starts to mount. They'll get 2 runs. Well, most of the front runners will. I think they'll have enough tyres in their armoury to head out, do a lap, back into the pits, go out, and then a final shot at it. Perez in that session. That's the thing, Verstappen was second quickest in that session. Perez was 0.2 slower, but 7th. So incredibly tight. Both Mercedes, the Ferrari of Sainz and the Aston Martin of Alonso, all in between them. Alonso looking a little, maybe he's just lifting up his hand to get a bit of cool air or something. Something looked a little panicked in the cockpit at something. Charles Leclerc looking at the screens. What is there still stuff to learn at this point? Sam, are you still chatting to your engineers and looking at?
So they will have GPS from other teams and look at where other people are stronger or weaker than them. So the engineers tend to study that. What these guys will be doing, what Lewis and against George Russell will be doing right now, is looking at data, proper data compared to each other, and just seeing, right, Lewis is braking 2 meters later there and I'm losing half a tenth, and you know, if you can piece together every good bit of their lap and every good bit of your lap, then hopefully you can find 0.2. And if each of them can find 0.2, then they could become a real factor. But to be fair, every single team, every single person is doing that.
The clock has started. Nobody out on circuit just yet. Waiting for the optimum time to head out onto the track. And we'll hear some engines firing up in a moment, I'm sure, and cars making their way to the end of the pit lane as the battle for the first pole position of the 2023 season begins. Both Ferraris still up on their jacks with the tyre warmers wrapped around, but now they're fired up. Leclerc is lowered down, Verstappen's gone out, so Verstappen trundles past Leclerc and the Ferrari team. As Leclerc makes his way out of the garage, followed by his teammate Carlos Sainz. Brand new tyres for the Ferrari pairing. Verstappen first out on track, just doing his own thing and trying to secure another pole position and his first of the season. The stat that everybody keeps saying, not since 2016 has the driver who won the opening race of the season gone on to win the World Championship. That was Nico Rosberg. But I guess runs are there to be ended, aren't they? 10 minutes to go. The Mercedes still up on their jacks. All eyes on the #1 mechanic waiting for the instructions. Piero Ferrari, the vice president of Ferrari, looking intently at the screens as he stands and watches at the back of the Ferrari garage. The Mercedes still in the pit lane, as is Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin, Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas, and Esteban Ocon in the Alpine. I'm expecting Hülkenberg and Ocon to maybe only do one run in this session. I think Mercedes look ready to go to do 2, but we've got 9 minutes and 10 seconds to go. You feel like they would have gone out by now if they were going to do 2 runs. You can see the cars on the circuit at the moment are the 2 Red Bulls, the 2 Ferraris and Lance Stroll, because you only have a certain amount of tyres you can use during qualifying. Now Verstappen, it doesn't look as though they've used any more, and I don't remember them using any more than OK, Red Bull didn't go out for a second run in Q2, but equally Mercedes didn't. I think they did one run and then another run on used tyres, I think, second time around. But maybe they did new Mercedes, and they don't actually have 2 goes at it in Q3. That looks like it's what's going to happen. So, first lap time's coming in. Max Verstappen is first on circuit as he comes up towards turn 4. The tight right-hander at the end of the first sector. A 28.7 is the fastest first sector time of the weekend so far, and Verstappen goes fractionally quicker than it. It was Carlos Sainz originally that had set that quick first sector. Charles Leclerc now is coming through sector 1. Perez is a tenth slower than Verstappen in the first sector, as is Leclerc. Verstappen with a tenth of a second advantage after the first third of the lap. Sainz is close to him though. Sainz is only 100th away in sector 1. Now into the middle sector, where Leclerc has been so quick on the previous lap in Q2. Verstappen winding his way up the hill towards turn 13. Onto the brakes, into the right-hander, then back on the power again. Very, very close to track limits, but I think he was all right. Middle sector splits coming in. Verstappen quick through the middle sector. Charles Leclerc is next through, he's quicker. It's neck and neck between Leclerc and Verstappen. Verstappen in the Red Bull, out across the line. And he does a 1 minute 29.897. The fastest lap time we've seen here in Bahrain this season. He's quicker than Perez by a couple of tenths of a second. Charles Leclerc out of the final corner in the Ferrari. The Ferrari engine you can hear as he drives to the line and he doesn't get it. Verstappen ahead by a tenth. Carlos Sainz in the other Ferrari now goes fourth. And Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin comes through now out of the final corner and is nowhere. 2 seconds off the pace, so there we go. Alonso heading out onto the circuit now, as is the Haas, and the Mercedes are still in the pit lane. So I can't quite work out where Alonso used that extra set of tyres compared to the Red Bulls and the Ferraris. The same is true of Mercedes, but obviously it was somewhere out there. So Verstappen quickest, only by a tenth of a second though. It's pretty tight between him and Leclerc. Really tight. Really tight. Really tight. It's exciting. I mean, we knew that Ferrari were competitive on 1 lap pace after testing, yet it looks like Red Bull have the performance on race runs. So this could be really tight between Verstappen and Leclerc going into their second run on new tyres. Leclerc took pole position here last season, 12 months ago. We're just getting a look at Carlos Sainz on his flying lap, coming into the right-hander of turn 6, then left at 7. Whoa, big snap on the exit of 7 for Carlos Sainz. Gathered it all up, but as he went on the curb, the car really tried to send him off the other way. Yeah, it's not ideal for lap time as well. He ended up, 4 tenths off his team? No, 3.5 tenths off his teammate. I reckon that's a good 10.5 in that little slide alone, Jack. So Fernando Alonso out on circuit now in the Aston Martin, the driver who's been many people's focus over the course of the last 2 days. And this is his one shot at trying to secure pole position. Can I, before putting a dampener on the parade, I think Fernando is looking at the bigger picture here, and I think he's looking into tomorrow. So don't be disappointed, everybody, if you see Fernando 5th or 6th. We know that he can race, and boy, can he race. Let's see if he can qualify. Well, we know he can qualify. Here he comes across the line and down towards turn 1. The Mercedes are out on circuit as well, with George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, but they're coming through the final sector. Alonso onto the brakes, into the first corner. One smooth action on the steering wheel as he flicks it left into turn 2. And now up to the right-hander of turn 4. DRS wide open, up to 180 miles an hour before stamping on the brakes and throwing it into the right-hander of 4. Keeps the car just within track limits, and compared to Verstappen in sector 1, he's down by a tenth of a second. Now into the middle sector, where the circuit sweeps left, right, left again, and then slows into the tight right-hander of turn 8 under the floodlights here in Bahrain. Russell and Hamilton are both starting their laps now into turn 9 and 10 for Fernando Alonso. In the green Aston Martin, again the rear wing DRS pings open as he powers down the back straight. Smooth again through the left-hander of turn 11. Middle sector split for Alonso. Compared to Verstappen, he's down by a quarter of a second. Looks like he's going to be behind the Red Bulls and maybe both Ferraris here, Alonso. Now into the final turn. Meanwhile, the first sector for Hamilton and Russell are not particularly exciting. Both a couple of tenths away from Max Verstappen. Alonso across the line goes fourth. Slower than Verstappen, Leclerc and Perez at the moment. Sainz is in fifth position. Here comes Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas. And Hülkenberg jumps up into sixth position. George Russell, Hamilton's 4 tenths down after the middle sector. Russell is down as well. Russell into the final corner. Little slide on the exit as he drives towards the line. George Russell for Mercedes goes fifth quickest, slower than Alonso. And Hamilton comes through and only goes seventh. Not a good lap from Lewis Hamilton. I mean, slower than his teammate Russell by 0.04 of a second, admittedly. But down in seventh place it is. And Leclerc's climbing out of the car. Charles Leclerc's climbing out of his Ferrari. The man who was fighting Verstappen for pole position has climbed out of the car and is walking to the back of the garage. Leclerc won't do another lap in qualifying. He's walked to the back in the engineering bay. He's looking up at the timing screens. Helmet's still on. But Leclerc isn't going out again.
So now it's a fight, Jack, between Verstappen and his teammate Checo Perez. Checo at the moment is in third, with Leclerc out, seemingly out of this session. It's a straight fight now between the two Red Bulls.
Maybe a Sainz.
Maybe a Sainz.
Maybe a Sainz. Sainz has got a shot at... well, what Perez needs to do is get on the front row. He needs to improve on this second run, get on the front row, and for the Red Bull team, at least, that's got to be the plan. What is going on down at Ferrari? It must be a technical problem. There's no chance that Leclerc's choosing not to go out again. Through the left-hander comes Verstappen. He's on his outlap now. Esteban Ocon's on his outlap too. As Alonso returns to the pit lane, having done his lap time. And Hülkenberg, ninth quickest. Alonso back into the garage. So he will be, at best, fourth on the grid. He's out-qualified the Mercedes of Russell, so that's the answer we had there. That was one answer we had. Would Aston Martin be quicker than Mercedes? They have been in this opening qualifying session of the weekend. 30 seconds on the clock. Final laps incoming from Verstappen, Perez, Sainz and Ocon. And Lance Stroll as well. He needs to find a bit more time. Verstappen up into turn 4. Turns through the right-hander, through the first sector, and compared to his previous first sector time, he's down by 100th. So he's not finding a huge amount of time in the first third of the lap. Sergio Perez through sector 1. He's only 1,000th down on Verstappen. Perez on a good run. Sainz now comes through. He's only 100th away as well. Not a personal best in sector 1 for Carlos Sainz, but Verstappen and Perez are now finding time. Sainz is finding time too. Stroll only goes 8th fastest, a 1:30.8. Again, the traditional, I mean, I say traditional, it's only been one weekend, but half a second slower than Fernando Alonso. Perez has done a personal best in sector 1.
Perez is looking strong, Jack. Perez is looking really strong here.
He and Perez, he and Verstappen both improving. Perez is up by 1/10 of a second, but Verstappen is up on his previous best as well. Verstappen into the final corner, out across the line. Perez is 700ths away after the middle sector, but his target time is about to drop. Verstappen comes through and does a 29.7, and I don't think Perez is going to beat it. Here he comes to the line now, but he gets ahead of Leclerc. Red Bull 1-2 on the grid for the moment, unless Carlos Sainz can split them. The Spaniard flat out towards the line, and he can't. Red Bull 1-2 on the grid. for the first Grand Prix of the season. Max Verstappen will start at the front. Charles Leclerc third on the grid. Ferrari 3-4. Fernando Alonso will be fifth for Aston Martin. Sixth, George Russell in the Mercedes. Seventh, Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes. Stroll in eighth. Ocon ninth. Hülkenberg 10th. And then Norris, Bottas, Joe, Tsunoda, Albon the top 15. Sargent, Magnussen, Piastri, De Vries and Gasly, the 20 drivers. And it's another pole for Max Verstappen. Not by an outrageous margin.
It was a lot closer than what we thought coming into the weekend. But
considering Leclerc didn't do another run as well.
Yeah, that was the disappointing thing about that session. But even so, I mean, wow. I mean, talk about an exciting qualifying session. That really felt like it could have gone any way. We had Ferrari's quickest, we had Mercedes quickest, we had Alonso fighting there all the time, and then the world champion pops it up there at the end. But that really had a lot of people fighting at the front.
Yeah. Andrew Benson, he's doing some maths and writing his reports, so he just shakes his head. All I was going to say is, should have stuck to your guns, motorsport journalists. You knew this was going to happen all along.
Yeah, looks about what I said, doesn't it?
But closer. The Ferraris were close. I think Leclerc would be on the front row if he'd had another run.
It's a real shame he didn't get that final run. We'll have to see why that was. And I think Alonso in fifth, it'll be a disappointment for a lot of people in the paddock after, and around the world probably, after all the excitement of the weekend. But for Aston Martin and him, that's a huge leap forward. And I think they can now look forward to, a very strong season.
Yeah.
I also think that potentially the Aston Martin's race pace, especially second phase of a tyre life, can be stronger than a Ferrari. So he's really in the fight for tomorrow for a podium. So don't discount Fernando Alonso for the top three in tomorrow's race.
Mercedes, in the end, Russell 4/1000ths of a second slower than Fernando Alonso, but they are a little way off the pace. There's no doubt about that. But Max Verstappen, the reigning champion, the two-time champion, looking for his third championship in a row, has started his title defence in the best possible fashion. Hops off the car, secures pole, and goes over to give a hug to his mechanics, who are getting used to this pole position lark, even though, to be fair, Leclerc had more poles last year. Leclerc's third on the grid, actually, so we will hear from him in a moment down in the pit lane to find out what went wrong and why he didn't go out and compete in that final part of qualifying, well, on the second run at least. As Verstappen stands on the scales outside the FIA garage. We'll be back with all the reaction. We'll hear from all the drivers in the Checker Flag podcast, which you'll be able to download a little bit later on this evening. And then obviously post-race tomorrow we'll bring you all the reaction too. 23 hours until the race gets underway. 6 o'clock here in Bahrain, 3 o'clock in the UK, and we're going to start with our third place driver, Charles Leclerc. He's talking to David Coulthard down in the pit lane here in Bahrain. And Leclerc, third on the grid, disappointed no doubt not to be able to fight the Mercedes, the Red Bulls for pole.
P1 last year, P3 this year. We saw you getting out of the car and we suddenly thought, is there an issue with the Ferrari? But is this strategic?
No, there wasn't any issue. I think we were in the fight for pole, which was a good surprise, to be honest, because I did not expect that after testing and after the free practices that were a little bit difficult. We managed to find that pace for the quali lap, which was great. However, we need to keep in our mind that in the race run, we seem to be a little bit on the back foot compared to Red Bull. And I think we are in a better place starting third with new tyres than starting first with old or a bit further up. I don't know if we will have gotten pole or not, but it will have been close.
Now, you were the pole king last year. That session, though, as we were watching the times being traded between yourself, the Red Bull, the Aston Martin of Fernando, it seems a lot tighter, and certainly a lot tighter than what the pre-season testing had predicted.
Yes, I hope it will also be like that on the race runs. Yeah, it was very, very close, actually. Aston Martin was really quick. Mercedes also was really quick at some point of the qualifying. And we are much closer than what we expected, which is looking good for the future. I think it makes Formula One more exciting. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the races.
There's a glint in your eye. Do you have a feeling about tomorrow?
Well, again, let's say that in the race run, we seem to have a bit of a weakness for now. Having a new tyre will help us tomorrow. but I don't know how much the picture will change with that. But it's going in the right direction at least.
Okay, well done.
Thank you.
Top 3 finish. We're going to hear now from Checo Perez. Checo, pretty tight there with Max, just a tenth between you. It's been tight all weekend. How was your lap? Did you leave anything behind?
Yeah, I mean, it has been really tight qualifying. I don't remember such a tight qualifying battle from Q1, Q2. You know, the competition, it's really marginal, so you cannot leave anything on the table to maximize your grid position. In the end, yeah, I wasn't totally comfortable with the balance. I believe certainly you can always improve a tenth on your lap. But I think to get this start for the team is really special.
You say you're not comfortable with the balance. This is all about one lap performance. Of course, the race tomorrow, it's about those long runs. Where do you think, do you think the balance will be more suited to the race run for you?
Yeah, if anything, we prepared much more to do the race. You know, we have more of a Sunday race car at the moment underneath us. We knew we had to do some compromises for quali, which we end up doing, and they were not ideal, but hopefully tomorrow it pays out and we can have a very strong race car.
That's ominous for your competition to know that was a compromised qualifying car and you've just put it P2. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And now it's time to hear from our pole position man, Max. Congratulations. Your 21st pole position on your father's 51st birthday. So that's a good father's present.
Yeah, I hope he was watching. No, I'm pretty sure he was watching. But yeah, I think it's been a bit of a tough start to the weekend yesterday, and today not really finding my rhythm. But luckily in qualifying, I think we managed to put the best pieces together, and of course very happy to be on pole, and also for the whole team coming off off last year, and again having such a strong car with Checo up there as well. Yeah, it's amazing, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
Put us in the cockpit. There's been minor changes to the floor heights, minor changes to the construction of the Pirelli tyre. How does the car feel relative to the first evolution, year one of this regulation?
Well, I think compared to last year, I think everyone knows a bit more what they're doing with the car. So naturally, I think you already start off better and more competitive. And then, the changes, I think, slow down the car a bit, but we are still going faster. So that's, of course, a great thing to see. And I think, again, throughout the year, you will see that everyone is increasing their performance again a lot. And that's the beautiful thing about Formula One.
Did you honestly expect it to be so tight? The gap to Ferrari, Fernando Alonso was not that far away as well?
I was actually positively surprised being on pole after the struggles I had in practice. So that's positive, and normally our race car is better. So let's see.
Okay, Max, congratulations on pole position.
Thank you.
So we'll hear from the drivers in the Checker Flag podcast, available shortly. Well, once we've done it and then edited it, and producer Paddy's bothered to upload it, and so hopefully it will only be a few hours. But we'll hear from Verstappen, we'll hear from Leclerc, we'll also hear from Alonso and Hamilton in the mix too. So make sure you get involved in that. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live. Max Verstappen on pole position for Red Bull for the Grand Prix tomorrow. Perez second, Leclerc third, Sainz fourth, Alonso fifth, Russell and Hamilton 6th and 7th, Stroll, Ocon and Hulkenberg the rest of the top 10. We'll be with you here on Sports Extra and the BBC Sport website for the race. The first race of the 2023 Formula One season gets underway. We're on air 5:45 here in Bahrain, 2:45 back in the UK. Speak to you then.